Since the beginning of the Republic, controlling the impact of money in American politics has been a challenge. And throughout our history, the Supreme Court has struggled to define the role of money in our democracy. So much so that it might be more accurate to say that in the face of periodic opposition from the Supreme Court, Congress has struggled to define the ways to control money in our elections. Recently, neither has struggled, as the Supreme Court has used the First Amendment as a sword instead of a shield, opening the floodgates of dark money, and Congress has done nothing to stop it. 6 years ago, Citizens United appeared to represent the nadir of the Supreme Court's evolving jurisprudence. But events since 2010 have conspired to make Citizens United look almost quaint. Here to help us understand the role of money in politics over the past 6 or more years is Peter Overby of NPR. He is a good friend of the League. He covers power, money, and influence, campaign finance, and lobbying. He was awarded the Alfred I. DuPont Columbia Silver Baton for his coverage of the 2000 campaign and the 2001 Senate vote to tighten the rules on campaign finance. In 2008, he teamed up with the Center for Investigative Reporting on the Secret Money Project, an extended multimedia investigation of outside money groups in federal elections. In 2009, he helped to produce Dollar Politics, an examination of ties between lawmakers and lobbyists, which won an award for excellence in reporting from the Radio and Television Correspondents Association. Please join me again in welcoming Peter Overby.
Thank you very much. It is not my usual way of talking to people, which is not seeing them and wearing headphones, and certainly not getting a welcome like that. So thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. I live in Falls Church, which is just west of here in Virginia, Falls Church contingent. And a good friend of mine was a stalwart in the Falls Church League of Women Voters. Her name was Beverly Rausch. And we were neighbors. I really admired her commitment to good government and good politics. Beverly died last month, but talking to you all brings her back to mind for me, so thank you for that. And now, I want to talk about something that Beverly used to wring her hands over, which is the Supreme Court. So, let's go back to those thrilling days of yesteryear, 2010 and the Citizens United ruling. I'm going to tell you about 3 things done by Citizens United. It seems to me that at least 2 of the 3 didn't turn out the way the court thought they would. Outcome number 1, obviously, is independent expenditures. It's the main point of the ruling. Independent expenditures is the term for spending that outsiders do. You know all this already. There are 2 things about IEs. They directly engage in the campaign. That is, they promote or attack a candidate, and they're independent of the candidate or party they're supporting. Citizens United is all about independent expenditures. First, it said corporations and unions can do them. And second, it said there can't be legal limits on how much is contributed or spent for them. So suddenly, there's this whole new channel for political money. And unlike the candidates and the party committees, the independent expenditure committees can raise as much as they want. They can even take money directly from corporations and unions. About the only regulation is the money can't come from foreign sources. When the Supreme Court issued the decision, there was a lot of talk among the campaign finance mavens about what kind of impact it would have. And I confess, I was on the side that expected less impact, not more. So instead of being right, I spent a couple years unlearning a lot of my knowledge about how money in politics works. Obviously, one new thing to learn about was Super PACs, which turn out to be the main purveyors of independent expenditures. Strictly speaking, they were created by a lower court decision, but it was based on Citizens United. Independent expenditures were not new in politics, but what Citizens United did was uncork them. The Center for Responsive Politics says there were maybe $150 million in IEs in the 2008 election cycle. The first presidential cycle with Citizens United and Super PACs, the IEs totaled more than $1 billion, 150 million to above 1 billion. IEs are already beyond 400 million in this cycle, and we haven't really gotten to the general election yet. So here's a key point the Supreme Court made about independent expenditures. I'll give you 2 quotes. We now conclude that independent expenditures, including those made by corporations, do not give rise to corruption or the appearance of corruption. And another one, there's only scant evidence that independent expenditures even ingratiate. So I used to have this fantasy idea of what the court was talking about. I figured it was like a group of musty old retired businessmen deciding to pool their leftover dividends to put up a few ads for their friend the senator. So I'm naive, but I wonder if the court was as well. Campaign finance lawyers wasted 0 time proposing loopholes to Citizens United. They took them to the Federal Election Commission, which started adopting them, or at least deadlocking on them, which is essentially the same thing nowadays. Most notably, the lawyers wanted to know, can a candidate attend events put on by a super PAC? Well, yes, the candidate can do that. How about raising money for the super PAC? Can the candidate do that? A qualified yes. The candidate just can't ask for more than $5,000. That's how much they could ask for a regular political action committee. So, candidates show up at super PAC fundraisers, giving a clear signal to the donors that that's what they ought to do, and the candidates get the donors warmed up and then hand them off to an aide to close the deal. Jeb Bush avoided this dance entirely by delaying his declaration of candidacy for several months. You remember how he was going to announce, and he was going to announce, and he was going to announce. All that time, he was raising super PAC money, which he would have had that $5,000 restraint on if he had already announced. So we now have a system where you can, it's a smarter move for the candidate to raise the money before announcing. I'm probably going to, I don't know, I'm thinking about running, but can you put $1 million into this? So here's another thing about super PACs. The independent expenditures are supposed to be independent, right? Super PACs aren't supposed to coordinate their advertising with the candidate. So it's surprising, or maybe not, how often they manage to synchronize messages. In fact, in this cycle, the single candidate super PACs did most or all of the TV for Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Rick Perry, and Bobby Jindal. There's an argument that that is one reason the Republican primaries turned out the way they did. The super PACs were able to keep some of those 17 candidates going, even when they didn't have enough grassroots support to keep going. And parenthetically, outsourcing the media campaign might not be as clever as it sounds. Super PACs can raise unlimited money, but candidates get a huge discount on TV time. So a lot of what the super PACs raise, they give back, or they pay forward to the TV stations. And you, at least as far as that goes, get a lot more bang for your buck having the candidate buy the TV time and the super PAC do something else. Some of the candidates kind of tried this. Carly Fiorina had her campaign do most of the TV, but her super PAC paid for her campaign events. So Fiorina would show up and give a speech, and wherever she did that, she was actually a guest at the event. And just to digress a little bit further about Fiorina for a minute, her campaign committee is Carly for President. Her independent Super PAC is Carly for America. Well, there's a rule that Super PACs can't use the name of a candidate in their own name. So the FEC pointed that out to Carly for America, and it renamed itself. It became Conservative, Authentic, Responsive Leadership for You and for America. Okay, so enough with outcome number 1. Numbers 2 and 3 will go by faster. So I want to quote another thing from the Citizens United ruling. The appearance of influence or access, furthermore, will not cause the electorate to lose faith in our democracy. The appearance of influence or access will not cause the electorate to lose faith in our democracy. By definition, an independent expenditure is political speech presented to the electorate that is not coordinated with a candidate. It also says, we now conclude that independent expenditures, including those made by corporations, do not give rise to corruption or the appearance of corruption. So, just, you know, the obvious thing there, you know, the top level point is that the Supreme Court did not anticipate single candidate super PACs. In effect, what the court is saying here, no matter what this looks like to you, it's not corrupt. Just keep moving. I don't think that's what they meant to say, because I don't think they foresaw how independent expenditures would flourish, and especially how these super PACs would bring million-dollar donors elbow to elbow with the candidates. Meanwhile, the FEC has been in court for years trying to write an acceptable definition of coordination between campaigns and outside groups. Opponents of regulating political money often say, and they say it a lot more often than they used to, it would be better to lift the caps off to lift the caps off of the money going to candidates and have instant disclosure for everything. I'm hearing that a lot more. As super PACs become more powerful, I'm hearing that argument a lot more when I talk to people. It ignores the concern about corruption, obviously, but at the same time, it is true that the big money is serving the candidates anyway, and it's just taking a more convoluted route to get there. Which brings me to outcome number 3, disclosure. The Citizens United decision was written by Justice Anthony Kennedy. He got to disclosure on page 55, from which I quote, "A campaign finance system that pairs corporate independent expenditures with effective disclosure has not existed before today." He's talking about online disclosure. He goes on, "Shareholders can determine whether their corporation's political speech advances the corporation's interest in making profits, and citizens can see whether elected officials are in the pocket of so-called moneyed interests. The First Amendment protects political speech, and disclosure permits citizens and shareholders to react to the speech of corporate entities in a proper way. This transparency enables the electorate to make informed decisions and give proper weight to different speakers and messages." Which leaves us wondering, what system of effective online disclosure is he talking about? You know, he's talking about one that doesn't actually exist. It didn't exist before that day and doesn't exist after that day. And last fall, Kennedy made an appearance at Harvard Law School and acknowledged that disclosure is not working the way it should, to use his phrase. So this is kind of a recurring theme in Supreme Court decisions about political money. Since Sandra Day O'Connor retired in 2006, there hasn't been a single justice who's run for office, which is to say, who has firsthand knowledge of how campaigns really work. So that's one reason that campaign finance law is rife with unintended consequences. It has been all along, and Citizens United certainly added to the pile. I thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions if there are questions.
I know everybody. I know there are questions, but I've got one to get started, and that is: do you see, or are you seeing any actions in the states that might be a model for reform efforts at the national level?
In broad strokes, I see it. I confess that I have not had a chance to focus on state-level things in several months. There's a presidential election, and that's kind of absorbed all my time.
There's just this little bitty election that's coming up in a little while.
Yeah, it's a little distracting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I will start at microphone 2.
Good morning. Cecile Schoon, Bay County League of Women Voters, State of Florida. When you say that Kennedy's admitted that he made a mistake or things aren't working out the way that he did, do you think it's time for a new challenge, looking at what's actually happened? Legal challenge.
Getting a challenge up to the Supreme Court takes forever. But, you'd have to bring a case about disclosure, make the argument that the disclosure is constitutionally inadequate, and push it forward.
Microphone 5.
I just wanted to say I'm Linda Andrus from the Missoula, Montana League, and you might want to look at the Montana Disclose Act that just went into effect in the last year and a half, and they are exploring instant disclosure, requiring candidates to file online finances several times through the elections. And I hope this helps, but I'm not sure. They can't find a way around that. So,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you. The U.S. Senate, bless its heart, still files on paper. And the way it works is Senate campaigns are all computerized just like everybody else. They use the same software that House campaigns do. But instead of hitting send and sending the stuff to the FEC, they take the data and they print it out, and they ship that to the Secretary of the Senate, who then makes a copy and ships that to the Federal Election Commission, which then ships it out to data processors to get it into the system again.
And of course, that happens instantaneously, right?
I'm sorry?
And that happens instantaneously, right?
Oh, yeah.
Microphone 3.
George Schuman, board member of the League of Women Voters of Kentucky, and it's been my privilege to serve on the Money and Politics Committee over this last biennium. And I want to ask you a question that will get a perspective on the current presidential race, because the first time to my adult recognition, money in politics has become an issue in a presidential election. And 3 Republican candidates, the leading one currently, and Carly Fiorina, who's been mentioned, and Ben Carson, all question money in politics. And all the Democratic candidates have addressed it. So I would like your assessment from a news perspective on how significant that campaign area will be in this presidential election.
I don't know. My sense in the primary was that they were mainly using the issue as a club to whack each other over the head. I didn't detect a lot of sincerity on it.
Alas.
Case in point being Donald Trump, who's now courting the people that that he, was so contemptuous of a few months ago. I think it has the potential to be an issue, but I think the impetus for that won't come from the candidates.
Alas.
And Peter, which is the for us, that's the huge question. Where is the impetus going to come from? Is it, if it's going to come from, not going to come from candidates or from elected officials?
The thing that strikes me as being new this year is the grassroots groups. The march from Philadelphia, the protests at the Capitol. That thing. I don't know if that's sustainable. I don't know. With things like that, you never know if you keep doing it and it becomes boring, or you keep doing it and it builds momentum.
Yeah. Thank you. Microphone 6.
Nancy Compton, League of Women Voters of Sacramento County in California. Okay, we have what we have, and we all hate it. In your estimation, what is the best course of action that we as a people can take?
I'm going to do a really rude reporter thing here and say that's not my job. for which I'm grateful.
I don't know whether to say thank you or not.
I don't know. I mean, you can go back through the 80s and 90s, and there have been a lot of books written about money in politics, and a lot of them by journalists. And typically, the book will end with a chapter on recommendations, and you look at them now, and you want to hold your head. So I have avoided that part of the discussion, and will continue to.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, thank you for being here.
Microphone 4.
Suzanne Schmidt, League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Peter, first, thank you for your work. You're in my home not every day, but many days.
Thank you.
I would like to know if in your reporting you have any sense of what portion a member of Congress's work week is spent soliciting donations.
I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I know that there are that the general wisdom is that it's 40% of the workday.
40?
Oh, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. Yeah, it's either 4 hours or 40%, and that comes from sort of guidebooks that new members get, where they're kind of taught how much time to spend doing different things, and so it's like that chunk of time is making phone calls, and then you also try to spend your breakfasts and your lunches and possibly your dinners doing fundraising. It used to be that fundraising was done in the evening, and now everyone's so busy that there are many more events focused around lunch and breakfast. The little, group of 5 kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. Microphone 3.
I'm Roland Richmond from Humboldt County League in far northern California. Thank you for your presentation. I have a daughter-in-law who's working on the Move to Amend initiative, and I'd be interested in knowing whether or not she's wasting her time.
I don't know. I mean, it works on a couple different levels. On the substantive level, is this amendment a good idea? Would it accomplish what you all want to accomplish? would it get enacted, ratified. The other is talking about amending the Constitution, a way to mobilize people. And I think the second has a clearer answer than the first, but I'm not going to get into predictions on constitutional amendments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Microphone 1.
Hi, Marcia Goldberg, League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland. I'm just wondering if you get any sense that a super PAC for Scott Walker, Jeb Bush, Bobby Jindal, Carly Fiorina didn't do any good. Could there be some pullback from corporations in giving this money?
That's a good question.
Well, first of all, most of the money to super PACs is not corporate. It's from mostly from rich white guys. Mm-hmm. And there is the corporate money that is there typically has been from privately held corporations where Joe Dokes is writing $1 million check, and he's also having a check written out of the Dokes Corporation account.
But wouldn't they be discouraged as well?
Possibly. There's a certain amount of pushback from the donors when things don't go right. Karl Rove saw it, and when the Crossroads organizations had a bad year. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that super PACs don't work, or it's perceived as not concluding that super PACs don't work. It's perceived as you're doing it wrong. Oh. So some consultant has to come in with a fresh idea of how to approach it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Microphone 2.
Would you please comment on the restraints that have been put on the IRS and its impact on super PACs and contributions to financing?
Okay.
Palm Beach County, Florida.
Well, the restraints aren't law yet. They passed the House. They haven't passed the Senate. And they would apply to the way the IRS handles 501c4 social welfare groups. Super PACs are political committees. The IRS doesn't deal with them. Whether the thing becomes law or not, it's pretty clear already that the IRS has been kneecapped by the controversy, and the IRS brought it on itself. If you read all the internal emails that got collected by the investigating committees, the IRS was frantically trying to figure out how to handle all these groups that were applying, and they didn't have a good idea of how to do it. They didn't have agreement on how to do it, and this is the result. There's a class action suit by some of the groups that got caught in the dragnet, and in the course of the lawsuit, a list of all the groups that were affected got published a couple of weeks ago. I finally got around to writing about it yesterday, and there are 426 groups. About 2/3 of them were conservative. So, which to me is sort of says that this is a reflection of the larger IRS issue, that the thing is such a mess that anybody of any political persuasion can draw their own conclusion out of it. 2/3 of the groups were conservative. Well, 1/3 weren't conservative. Well, actually, part of that 1/3 is groups that I couldn't identify. So, but there were, I think, 3 League of Women Voters chapters on the list. I can't tell you which ones. I don't have the story with me. I apologize for that. There was a there were civic groups. There were obviously lefty groups. There were a few Progress and Progress Now groups. So it was a hodgepodge, but the overwhelming majority was groups that were called conservative or Tea Party or Patriot or 9/12. So the conclusions are there for you to draw your own.
We have time for one more question, and I'm going to go to microphone 4.
Good morning. Jennifer Levy Tatum, League of Women Voters of Chester County, Pennsylvania. Peter, you've told us about the unintended consequences of the Citizens United decision. And so it seems to me that this decision may be considered to be fundamentally flawed. In your opinion, what is the fundamental flaw? What is the fundamental problem here?
If there is one, I would think it's that they left gaps of uncertainty, ambiguity, where this is not unusual for a Supreme Court decision. They don't have crystal balls, so they can't see what's coming. And I think that the picture that they had of what they were doing and how it would play out is different from what actually did play out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us and helping us to understand a really complicated issue.